Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Robert Canter, and this is The Passion. Exhausted, dehydrated, suffering from severe external and internal injuries, bleeding profusely, and in blinding pain, Jesus now faces the longest walk of his life. At long last, the cross is laid before him. A week ago he entered Jerusalem to shouts of joy. Now he leaves the city as a condemned man. Now, there is some debate as to what Jesus actually carried to Golgotha. If you walk into any church and look at the Stations of the Cross, you'll probably see Jesus carrying the full Latin cross. But a lot of church scholars think this isn't what actually happened. At this point, it's taking every ounce of strength and willpower Jesus has just to stand up, let alone carry a 175 to 300 pound cross through the city streets to the place of execution. Crosses used in Roman crucifixions consisted of two parts, the upright base and the horizontal crosspiece. According to the first century Jewish historian Josephus, wood was scarce in Jerusalem, and the Romans had to travel 10 miles to get it. Crucifixions were a regular occurrence in the Roman Empire, so in many cases, the bases were already set up outside the city and were reused as needed, and condemned criminals just carried the crosspiece to the place of execution. It was usually tied to their wrists. Once they arrived, they were nailed to the crosspiece, which would then be fitted into a notch on the base. This is seen in many TV and film adaptations, such as the miniseries Jesus of Nazareth. Even in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, while Jesus is carrying a full cross, the two criminals that are crucified with him are shown just carrying wooden beams. However, a thorough analysis of the Shroud of Turin suggests that Jesus may have been forced to carry the whole cross. It is believed that certain marks on the back suggest pressure from the whole cross. It's also worth mentioning that in cities like Jerusalem, the Jews were, by their own laws, forbidden from touching anything unclean, such as a used crossbase covered in blood and feces. History shows us that as oppressive as they may have been, the Romans would have done what they could to keep the peace, like not leaving condemned criminals hanging on the Sabbath. Ultimately, whether or not Jesus carried the whole cross or just a single beam is irrelevant. What's important is that he did it for the forgiveness of sins and the salvation of all the world. The number of Stations of the Cross have varied over the years, until Pope Clement XII fixed the number to 14 in 1742. As I've already stated, at this point Jesus is weak and in blinding pain, not to mention he has sweat and blood dripping down his face and into his eyes. How does he even know where he's going? The Stations of the Cross have him falling 3 times. But it's no stretch of the imagination to suggest that he fell more times than that. And each time this happened, it would have been even harder for him to get back up. It quickly becomes clear that Jesus can't carry the cross to Calvary all by himself, so Simon of Cyrene is forced to help him. Simon is one of those characters in the Bible that is briefly mentioned once and is never heard from again. And yet, he is still remembered by history for 2,000 years. Veronica is not mentioned in the Bible at all. We only know about her through tradition. Nothing is known about her before or after the crucifixion. She is literally lost to history. Her small act of compassion would have unintentionally caused Jesus more pain. The crown of thorns was irritating the nerves in his head, sending pain all across it as well as his neck and shoulders. Even a small gust of wind would have set him off. But at least he was briefly able to get some blood and sweat out of his eyes. Her veil is believed to be in the Vatican to this day. Even as he struggles through the streets to Calvary, Jesus knows his pain won't end when he gets there. Take and eat. This is my body, given up for you. Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins.